Good morning and welcome to the EBA Pro webinar series, Charter Edition. My name is Jeff Schaefer of Super Yacht Sales and Charter. As I'm sure many of you already know, I chair the Charter Professionals Committee here at IYBA. This year, in lieu of our standard seminar and open house, we've been hosting monthly open houses at the new Las Olas Marina. And if you haven't stopped by, definitely stop by later this month during the Fort Lauderdale Boat Show and take a look. It's absolutely amazing. So we have 3 panels for you today. Our first is with Bob Saxon on the sensitive subject of tips. He is going to be presenting the findings from our latest poll of the membership and proposing a couple of scenarios for us to think on. Then I am hosting a panel on AI and how we can use it within the charter industry. And then Daphne Diofe gets to ask David Moss some very pertinent questions relating to the hottest topics affecting the charter industry today. Just want to say thank you to our sponsors today. Seabold Portraits, Super Yacht Northwest Organization, hi Ryan, and Informa, who are providing 5 Wynwood VIP tickets for the Fort Lauderdale Boat Show. We'll be announcing the winners throughout today's webinar, so make sure you stay tuned to the end. So I hope you already have your coffee. Turn off your notifications and sit back and enjoy the next hour of content created especially for you. Enjoy.
Hello, everybody. I'd like to welcome you to the EBA Charter webinar and a series of educational panel discussions. I'm Bob Saxon of Bob Saxon Consultancy, Vice President of EBA and liaison from EBA to the Charter Professionals and the Charter Retail Committee and our charter industry. A casual observer or an outsider might look at the subject of our discussion today, gratuities and tips for crew, as somewhat innocuous, inane, an absurd subject, yet the controversy that it creates in our business is monumental. The chats between crew and industry, the sheer volume. I recently was exposed to 1,600 lines on a chat line of redacted text on the subject alone, creating controversy between crew and charter managers and brokers. It's been the subject of seminars and now this webinar. It's created angst and turmoil. We've lost charter customers, as you will hear or you may have just heard in the white paper. And it is the most disruptive and divisive issue that I have ever experienced in my 40 years in the business. And it's all over money. Hence the white paper. It's white, it's paper, see, there it is. And this is a collaborative charter industry work that's in progress as we speak. It's a product of your industry. It's a dynamic piece. It is a result of surveys and feedback, volumes of information that's been arriving to our ad hoc committee. With the support of the professional associations as well, especially MEBA, who have contributed mightily. This white paper was recently played at the EBA-MEBA Summit. But there was no discussion at that time, and now it's become this webinar topic, out of demand and out of request. I'd like to introduce our panelists for today. I am the moderator, and if I look to my right and I look to my left, I have no panelists here. It's just me and Lee Savage, Yeti, who's a director on the other side of this camera, so I will be speaking. We are the panelists, but in fact, you are the panelists. As many as 100 of you may be tuning in right now to hear this discussion. Before we show the video of the white paper that was read to the EBA-MEBA conference, I'd like to read to you a preamble from the white paper. Quote, in spite of the need for guidelines, the vast majorities of captains, crew, and charter brokers act with the highest degree of professionalism and ethics. This is not, therefore, an indictment of the industry at large. It is more a set of guidelines and best practices, and if universally accepted, a ruling by exception. To reiterate, this is not a broad stroke indictment, but challenging the extreme elements of our industry. Lee, would you cue up the video and play it now, please? Well, good afternoon from soggy South Florida. I hope the weather's a little better for you over there in Monaco, beautiful Monaco. I want to welcome you all to the MEBA-EBA Monaco Summit seminar segment on charter gratuities of all things. Who would believe that, right? I'm Bob Saxon of Bob Saxon Consultancy, also of EBA, liaison to the CPC and the CRC. I'm unable to travel today, unfortunately, so the gavel is being passed to worthy EBA President Grant Henderson to moderate the discussion, which will be an open and interactive discussion with you as the main contributors. There will be no panel. I've been asked to read into the minutes or the recording the white paper that is being developed by the ad hoc committee of EBA and with contributions from most of the major associations. A white paper meant to inform, okay, listen to this, and persuade a target audience about a specific issue or a challenge. This paper is in its rawest draft form because you will be the final architects of this paper. Your contributions following this seminar, and also as we do further research on these, will contribute to the final version of what we actually release to the industry. So sit back, you don't need to take any notes, and let me introduce the white paper entitled Navigating the Controversy of Yacht Crew Charter Gratuities, Best Practices and Recommendation. I want you to listen carefully to this quote from a very well-known and renowned charter captain, successful. Quote, "The harboring of an entitlement mentality towards something that by all definition is and remains to be a gift is the essential problem." If you can really think through all that, you understand where we're going with this white paper. The yacht charter industry, I've known for 40 years, a pinnacle of luxury hospitality, relies heavily on exceptional crew services to deliver memorable experiences. I don't think you need to be told that. A key aspect of this service dynamic is the practice of gratuities, which has sparked ongoing debate due to varying expectations, cultural differences, and inconsistent guidelines. While tipping is customary to reward crew for their dedication, controversies have been arising from unclear standards, unrealistic crew expectations, and regional disparities in the tipping norms. This white paper explores those complexities of yacht crew gratuities, examines the controversies, and provides actionable recommendations to establish best practices that ensure fairness, transparency, and satisfaction for both charter guests and crew. Another quote for you to think about, and this comes from one of the most respected and revered charter managers in the industry. Quote, "The growth of the industry is at serious risk with the ever-increasing expectation of rising crew tips," a subject that has been left unspoken. Now, we did a poll of the associations, who in turn polled their membership with general questions about crew gratuities. I'd like to read these poll questions to you and think about them before I give you the answer. How would you react to this? Poll question number 1, issues involving crew gratuities are disruptive to the yacht charter business. How many of you would say a positive, or how many of you would not agree? Well, 67% of your colleagues replied completely agree or somewhat agree. Yacht charters offer unparalleled luxury, crews working tirelessly, we know, to cater to guests' every need, often for 16 hours a day or more. Gratuities are a standard way to acknowledge that effort, typically ranging from 5 to 20% of the charter fee, depending on the region and service quality. However, the lack of universal standards has led to confusion and contentions. In the early 2000s, excessive tipping by some charterers inflated crew expectations, causing disappointment later when lower tips were received. While some industry associations introduced guidelines recommending a range for gratuities to stabilize expectations, challenges persist due to cultural differences, as you can understand, broker communication or absence of broker communication, and guest discretion. Recently, certain associations have opted to remove gratuity recommendations to instead focus on promoting ethical conduct around this topic. This paper aims to clarify the issues and propose best practices to harmonize tipping practices within the yacht industry. It's not a mandate, but a guide for industry-wide alignment. And I want to mention, as a preface to this, that most of the charter yachts don't operate under these extreme conditions. And that is that they all fall in line with what's expected ethically and professionally. And this is cast out there to recognize that there are, however, some extremes that need to be addressed. Poll question number 2. Think back in your mind, how would you answer this? How often have you or your colleagues, whether it's charter brokers or charter managers, had to address crew or client disputes involving charter gratuities? Want to guess to yourself what percentage it would be? What happens to be 58% of your colleagues replied often or on occasion. That is much too high for our industry. The controversy surrounding yacht crew gratuities. 1. Unclear tipping standards and crew expectations, something we're going to hammer home today over and over again. The absence of universally accepted tipping standards creates confusion, and it does, from my experience, for charter guests. While some associations previously suggested up to 15% of the base charter fee, other norms, especially in the U.S. and Caribbean, go up to about 20%. This inconsistency leads to crew disappointment when expectations aren't met, understandably so, occasionally resulting in vocal dissatisfactions that undermines the guest experience. The gap between guest perceptions and crew expectation creates friction and dissatisfaction, and hence the basis for this paper. 2. Cultural and regional variations, which are often forgotten. Tipping norms differ globally. In the Mediterranean, gratuities average anywhere between 5 and 10%, a little bit higher, reflecting European habits. In contrast, U.S. and Caribbean charters often see 15 to 20% as standard, 15% to 20% of the base charter hire. In places like Japan, interestingly enough, tipping may even be considered offensive. These differences lead at the crew level and brokers level to confusion and unintended offense or disappointment. 3. This is a very important one and most vital. Pressure and solicitation concerns. Although industry standards discourage gratuity solicitations, some crews, believe it or not, subtly suggest tips such as listing suggested percentages in welcome materials. This creates pressure and it can detract from the luxury experience. Under no circumstance, it is the basis of this paper, should gratuities ever be solicited directly or indirectly by crew members. That'll be a point of controversy, certainly from the crew perspective. Impact on crew welfare and retention in their favor. Gratuities make up a significant part of the crew compensation, but viewing them as entitlements rather than gestures can lead to entitlement mentalities and disappointment. Crews should understand that gratuities are like bonuses, not guaranteed income. Likewise, yacht owners, very important point for you yacht managers to speak to your yacht owners, should not underpay crew salaries assuming tips will bridge the gap. Industry professionals, including yacht managers and charter managers, should advocate for fair base pay and educate owners accordingly. Our third poll questions, these are fun. Assuming you or your colleagues have been involved in a charter dispute over gratuities, which of the following was most often the source? The responses were across the board, not evenly, but there was enough sampling for each of these responses for me to go through each one of them individually. Inadequate broker-client discussions, 15%. Brokers not willing to discuss these matters with the client, not wanting to address issues involving crew gratuities and that, just get the deal done. Crew discontent with gratuity amount is the highest sampling, 38%. Guest dissatisfaction with services, a lesser 15%, meaning most people are happy. They're not going to undertip the crew because, in most cases, because of inadequate service. Cultural difference, which we've already discussed, 10%. And then captains directly soliciting gratuities, 32%. Now, those serve as the basis for ongoing disputes and all this. I've learned yesterday that there are yachts who make it clear to their charter managers that they are not to be chartered to certain nationalities and also not to be chartered to any groups that have not had the practice of providing at least minimally a 15% gratuity. That's not so much in good favor of what the owner is wanting to do for his charter boat. Our recommendations for best practices are these. Standardize and communicate tipping guidelines. The action item is industry professionals associations should consider agreeing on a flexible global guideline. For example, 5 to 20% based on charter type and region. Implementation of this action. Brokers must explain gratuities during the booking process and include regional variations. Materials like etiquette guides should be shared. The benefit to be derived, clear expectations reduce conflict and align perceptions. Number 2, enhance broker education, training, education, and enlightenment, guest communications. Action, train brokers to inform guests that tips are customary but discretionary and to explain the distribution process. Implementation, include tipping frequently asked questions on company websites and in pre-charter packets. The benefit to be derived, guests make informed choices, reducing surprises or pressure. 3, prohibit solicitation and promote professionalism. Another report that I referenced earlier is one of the most important, and that is action. Reinforce no solicitation policies through training and crew onboarding implementation. Review welcome letters, monitor guest feedback, and train captains in tip-related etiquette. Benefit to be derived, avoids pressure, and maintains the integrity of the guest experience. Here's a good poll question, number 4. Have you or your colleagues ever lost a charter client, God forbid, due to issues involving charter crew gratuities? 19%, which I think is a whopping amount, sounds like it's low. 19% responded on occasion or rarely. I say that because if we lose only one customer, that's one customer too many to lose out of our business. 5, support crew welfare and fair compensation. Action item, yacht owners must provide competitive salaries without relying on gratuities as a wage substitute. I, as a yacht manager, have had numerous conversations with yacht owners who say, well, Bob, we'll pay them less than scale, but just think of all the money they're going to make up in gratuities, which is not a good idea because oftentimes, because the yacht's not chartering, it's not anything to do with whether the crew has anything to do with it or not. Encourage feedback and conflict resolution. Action, set up structured feedback options post-charter. Guests choosing not to tip should be encouraged to explain why. Implementation, include anonymous feedback forms or interviews in post-charter processes. Brokers should mediate disputes where needed. The benefit to be derived is it helps improve service and maintains positive relationships. It's just common sense. Poll question number 5. The subject of crew gratuities is a matter that needs to be addressed by the charter industry at large. Think to yourself, is it something that needs to be addressed? What would you guess the response to be? In fact, 91% of your colleagues have replied completely agree or somewhat agree. In summary, the points to be discussed are lacks of transparency, crew dependence and inflated expectations, cultural disparities, gratuities perceived as obligations, and absence of standardized policies and practices, and solicitation by crew. And I might say in conclusion that gratuities, we agree on this, gratuities are a vital yet contentious element of yacht charters. Misaligned expectations, cultural inconsistencies, the lack of clarity risk undermining the guest experience and crew morale. By adopting industry-wide best practices, standardized guidelines, clear communications, non-solicitation policies, transparent policies, processes, and fair play, the charter sector can ensure gratuities remain a valued gesture of appreciation, and implementing these recommendations will reinforce the yacht charter industry's commitment to excellence and ethical service for crew, guests, crew, and operators alike. And with that, I wish you good business as we drive and strive toward greater professionalism and a sense of ethics for all who are involved in our wonderful industry. Grant, it's all up to you now. You've got the scenarios. Take it away. Thanks for taking the time to watch the video. You can see the great divide that exists and separates the professionals instrumental to good business in our industry, crew and charter agents alike. I hope you paid particular attention to the poll questions answered by some 160 professional charter agents and brokers with additional input captured from the captain's chat lines. The white paper, therefore, is a dynamic piece with one intention: to evoke results-oriented discussions, and not just forums for griping, finger-pointing, and negativism about this wonderful industry in which we bask. After all, it's a variation on killing the goose that laid the golden egg, wouldn't you agree? Charter brokers, managers, captains, and crew, we invite your comments and suggestions, and we're going to have a slide that shows up. You can write to me at bob@bobsaxonconsultancy.com. All of your replies are considered anonymous unless you care otherwise. And now we're going to talk about the all-famous scenarios that everybody loves. Why? Because they're true life experiences. And on your screen shortly, you'll see the first of 3 of those scenarios, and I'll read them to you. I want to say thanks to the Ad Hoc Crew Gratuity Committee for providing, as well as the plethora of scenarios that have been hitting my inbox, along with copies of anonymous comments on megaphone, redacted, and sent to me. There were 30 scenarios that arrived in all, some quite nightmarish, some kind of funny. So with that, Lee, would you cue up the first scenario? Scenario number 1, a charterer tips the captain and crew 15% at the conclusion of the charter, only to be presented shortly thereafter with a copy of the signed APA the advanced provisioning allowance, with a line item for crew gratuities starting within a range of 18 to 25%, with the captain asking the charter client why the crew only received 15%. So, what happened here? Much of what we're dealing with in this particular scenario is a lack of transparency about tipping norms, mismatched expectations. In short, we should take a look at what the root causes of this are and were, what should have happened, and what can be done to avoid this in the future as part of industry standards and guidelines that we are attempting to establish. Scenario number 2. A successful charter concludes and the charterer hands the captain an envelope with the gratuity. The charterer and guests depart only to be accosted on the dock by the captain, who informs the charter principal that the crew ordinarily receives a minimum of 20%, and the amount given to his crew only amounted to 15%, was $6,000 short. The captain asked if the crew service was satisfactory, and if so, why the tip was low. The charterer, departing the yacht with his guests, family, and friends, is embarrassed, has to take up a collection from the guests on the dock to give the captain on the spot the $6,000. The following day, the charterer gets the captain and the charter broker on the phone and vowing never to again charter a yacht. So scenario number 2 tells it what is the root cause, what caused this disruption, what should the captain's actions have been. If a captain is dissatisfied with the gratuity, should he have the right to voice the dissatisfaction to the charter client on the spot? Seeking feedback, would love to hear your response and reactions to all of this. What takes us to scenario number 3. After a seemingly successful charter, the charterers leave the yacht without presenting a gratuity. The captain, believing it must have been an honest oversight on the part of the charterer, asks the charterer about a gratuity, and the client responds that gratuities were never really discussed. And he believed that the tips were included in the $300,000 charter hire. So therefore, what happened? What were the root causes? What should be done to avoid this in the future? Did the captain act professionally in confronting the charterer about the absence of a tip? Should the captain have addressed this in another manner? The absence of a gratuity entirely sparks a debate about, is tipping an obligation, and leads to talk about gratuities being discretionary. And of course, the clients maintaining that they were unaware, and therefore did the broker drop the ball, or has it, as it has happened often, failed to or didn't want to address the matter of crew gratuities at all. These are just samples. There are some 30 other scenarios, all differing in subject matter from both the crew and the charter agent perspective, but the themes include these regularly: miscommunications over tip expectations and lack of transparency, unequal tip distribution among crew, no gratuities or short gratuities in spite of exceptional service, crew viewing tips as compensation as opposed to a gift. And I have 3 general questions at this point as I conclude to pose to you. 1, if in fact there are industry-wide so-called captain's guidelines that address these issues, why does the problem persist, and why is it a growing problem? 2, what if anything can be done to strengthen this message in the guidelines toward adherence to best practices? And 3, should owners be part of this dialogue? In summary, according to our feedback, controversy over crew gratuities are a disruptive force, yet the industry has been somewhat publicly silent on the subject. So topics for future discussion: lack of transparency, crew dependence on tips and inflated expectations, cultural disparities, gratuities perceived as an obligation, absence of industry-wide standardized practices, and solicitation of gratuities by crew. In closing, I want to repeat from the white paper because I want to put some emphasis on it. I will add that gratuities are a vital but contentious element of yacht chartering. Misaligned expectations, cultural inconsistencies, lack of clarity that risk undermining the guest experience and crew morale. By adopting industry-wide best practices, guidelines, clear communications, non-solicitation policies, transparency, and fair pay for crew, the charter industry can ensure gratuities remain a valued gesture of appreciation. Implementing recommendations will reinforce the industry commitment to excellence and ethical service for guests, crew, and operators alike. Thanks again. We look forward to your feedback, and I'm going to ask Lee to put up a slide now that shows you how you can reach me and provide your input. Many thanks and have a great day.
At Seabold Portraits, we custom hand-draw yachts, the ultimate gift for brokers and charter managers alike. For brokers, it's the perfect closing gift, with complimentary note cards featuring your brokerage information on the back, a lasting reminder of your service. For charters, each set can be personalised with thank you notes from the captain and crew, the perfect touch to follow those unforgettable trips and generous gratuities. More than a gift, it's a legacy. Email us at seaboldportraits@gmail.com or give us a call. We're looking forward to working with you.
Welcome to our panel discussion on how yacht charter brokers can use AI to increase sales. My name is Jeff Schaefer from Super Yacht Sales and Charter Management Director, and the chair of the EBA Charter Professionals Committee. Here today we have Sarah Shake, she's the founder of Vacancy, and we have Olivier Salon, Marketing Manager for James Ross Advertising. So thank you both for being here today. Just going to discuss how charter brokers can use AI and, like we said, increase sales. So much, this is changing rapidly, and what we're saying today might, of course, change tomorrow. But I'd just like to start with you, Sarah. A little bit about your company.
Sure. So I am the owner and founder of Vacancy. We are a branding and creative agency that specializes in hospitality, real estate, and of course, some yachting clients. We really focus on a brand-first approach, and as an admitted holdout on AI, we've recently really embraced it and really started to use it with a lot of our campaigns and our clients with great results so far. So we're really excited to kind of share some of that today.
Great, thank you very much. And Olivier from James Ross Advertising.
Thank you. So James Ross Advertising, we've been in business for about 30 years. Me, myself, not so much, but you know Neil Ross. He's been around for a while. Our group is both sides of the house. We have creative and development. We specialize in digital marketing. The use of AI is definitely, I can say, increased productivity. We get more done in less time.
Mm-hmm.
And I think our team is very excited to, I'm probably going to run all of this back, but our team is very excited to embrace what's to come with AI.
Great.
Yes.
Well, right now, with the changing landscape in yacht charter sales, the traditional sales cycle has its challenges. It's very time consuming. We have inquiries that come in from charter brokers, or we're, as a retail charter broker, we're sending inquiries to a charter manager and waiting for approval back from the owner and the crew. We have to put together manual proposals. So we have to sit and create an itinerary or find a way to keep the guests entertained at every port that they stop in. So there is competition from online booking platforms that are trying to break into the industry, and we have to look and see where brokers could add a unique value outside of these online booking platforms that are all-encompassing and keep that human touch. So I just wanted to touch on that and just see, Sarah, do you have anything to add about the current landscape?
Sure. Well, I think in the yachting industry and other kind of similar industries, there's a tendency to do things a certain way because that's the way it's always been done, right?
Correct.
And I think that what we're going to see, with certain players in the industry is that the people that are open to adopting AI for certain parts of their business are going to be the ones that have, a head start on everyone else. So I think that, in my business, I create proposals a lot too. And so that is a hugely time consuming piece of our job. And so, for somebody that's new to AI, that's new to ChatGPT, using it for research is probably one of the easiest ways to kind of dip your toes in. There's no real sensitive information. It's certainly something that's time consuming, can be kind of tedious. So I think that, using AI for research is an amazing implementation. On ChatGPT, there's even a further feature called deep research. And if you haven't tried that, I would really encourage you to try that, because
I haven't. I'll look into that. Thank you.
it takes your top Google answers, and then it takes them even a step farther. So, when you're looking at something like that, especially as an expert in the industry, you can use these research tools. And then, of course, with your own expertise and with that human oversight, then you can create something that's really valuable to your client.
Okay. So could you use like ChatGPT to create an itinerary, or find like the best restaurants in an area, or what are the highlights of an area that the yacht will stop along on a charter?
Absolutely. I mean, that's a great use case for AI, right? And I think that you could even do something like, hey, this is a repeat client. This is what they did last year. Based on what we know that they enjoy doing, create a new itinerary and a new destination. So there's also kind of a, AI is only going to be as good as the prompt that you put in.
Absolutely.
And so that's where we can use, or you guys can use as experts, to make that prompt really good, or give the AI engine more information about that client, right? So if you have, for example, hey, here was their 10-day itinerary from last summer, we want to give them something new, but use this to understand what they're really excited about. Then you can really create something special that still feels customized and not super generic, just that you would pull off of, any search engine or any, top site or thing like that.
Great. Olivier?
Yes, I 100% agree with all of that. The use of AI for research has probably been one of the most influential things on our agency. We're able to get really creative with bouncing ideas off of it and using other AIs in tandem. So you have a lot of fact checking going on. It does not replace the human. You do need to focus on your prompt. Your prompt is exactly what's going to guide your answers. I really like our dynamic in our agency, the fact that we have optimists and pessimists. So there are people in there that, I don't think that's quite correct. Or what if? Right? So we keep pushing it. Regarding itineraries for charter, it's probably where I would start as a yacht charter broker. And we work with a manufacturer, and they do their rendezvous annually. And this year they used AI, ChatGPT specifically, to craft a nice agenda for, 12 days? And
That's great.
Similar to what you just said, it was, we did this last year. How do we do it different this year? And again, the more information it has, the better.
Yes, and of course we will still always have that human touch, because we still have to use the MLS systems to actually find the yachts, because for now I don't really foresee AI replacing using a multiple listing service to see what yacht's available in what area. I mean, I'm sure that's probably down the road. I mean, but for now, we still have that human touch there. But these are all great points. But do you see AI replacing brokers eventually? I mean, we just discussed, having that human touch, but do you think it's possible to have somebody go into ChatGPT and, say, I want to charter a yacht in this area, and have AI find a yacht for them, create an itinerary, work with them to fill out the preference sheet and the contract? I mean, is that possible down the road?
No, I don't think that is going to replace that aspect of it at all.
Yes.
You're going to need to have the human element, at least at the contractual side, for sure. The expectations are going to rise.
You have a lot of people, that are going to watch this webinar.
Yeah, you don't want to be that guy
that's
that's not using AI. If somebody's like, hey, did you do everything you could? Were you as thorough as you could possibly be?
Absolutely.
I have a great quote for this, or I heard a great quote for this, and it says, AI will not replace your job, but a person using AI will.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think, listen, as a creative, we were like first on the chopping block to go when ChatGPT started. People immediately thought they didn't need copywriters or designers, right? But the bottom line is they still do need that. And I think in the similar way, someone is still going to need a broker because this is an incredibly nuanced industry.
Absolutely.
You're going to know certain things about certain boats. You're going to know certain things about certain captains and crews and destinations even. So it's incredibly nuanced, and I don't think that the role of a broker gets replaced by AI, certainly anytime soon. I mean, anything is possible 50 years from now. But I think that it is the person that embraces AI that, again, is more successful.
And of course, I mean, I've seen it just in trying GPT a few times. You have to really pay attention because there are errors. So you have to read through it and like, oh, okay, we need to ask ChatGPT to revise it, and not be nice, by the way. Just say, revise this. Don't please and thank you.
It's funny actually because I've deliberately fed it false information to see what it would do. Use it as gospel. And if you don't tell it to check itself, then you might be set up for some failures down the line because it does remember your chats.
Interesting. So as far as like, we had a discussion previously, you and I, Sarah, about generative AI, like writing and images and video. Would you like to touch on that a little bit?
I mean, I think that the use of visual AI generators is an excellent tool. It becomes a really cost-effective way for firms to create content, but you have to be really careful in terms of making sure that you're not falsely advertising anything. So we found it to be very successful in creating proprietary content because what's nice about creating original imagery is that you have unlimited usage of it and it belongs to you. So it's not going to be the same as, for example, going on a stock image site and pulling off, a picture of a happy couple on a yacht. And so I think it's been a great resource for all of our clients, but like anything, you do have to manage that and also make sure that you're not, pumping up an image too much to mislead someone because that's only going to create, issues on the back end.
And Olivier, on the image side, one of your colleagues and we were working with AI and playing around with an image, and I believe you were a part of that conversation.
Yeah, definitely.
And it was really quite fascinating to see that you could remove the flybridge, or you could, turn a raised pilot house into a tri-deck. And do you have to, or is there any regulation to say that this is an AI altered image?
So that's a good question. We did it just for the experiment, but I would never edit an image that deeply, especially for a yacht. Most we'll do is remove some rubbish. If a broker took some pictures with their cell phone and it just was not ideal.
Sure.
Maybe highlights on the hull, shot at a different time of the day where the reflection makes it look a little odd. But for the most part, we're not touching the image. Again, false advertising. You don't want to pump it up.
Sure.
But the capabilities, yes, they are there. Lifestyle shots. And, going into video, this conversation was last year, and it's evolved so much since then. But VO3, for example, that's Google's video image AI. That's really impressive. I still wouldn't use it for a shot of a yacht, moving. Although you probably can if it's not too edited. I would use it maybe for a destination shot. Showing a destination, adding movement to a still image that's high resolution.
But for now, there's no regulation that if somebody creates an AI altered image, there's no...
On the books, there's nothing. And now, the same way ChatGPT has a little disclaimer, ChatGPT makes mistakes. I would question as well, at what point do we need consent, or will it become an issue where this content was created by AI? Where's the notification? At what point is that going to happen? Or this decision was made based on AI. So I think that's something we should be thinking about for sure, because it might change down the line.
Okay. So can AI be used for, like predictive measures like a market analysis or looking at demands, trends? Could you use AI for that purpose?
I was just learning about a new platform called Answer the Public. So if you were a broker and you had a specific charter destination or you had a specific brand of yacht that you wanted more information on, you can actually put this in and see what people are searching for. It's a lot like Google Analytics in a way, or a keyword planner and things like that. But essentially, you can see what those trends are. So this would be very helpful as you ramp up, for example, a show. This is going to give you an idea of what people are really looking for with real-time analytics. So it's definitely a good tool for that. That's probably a little bit more of a sophisticated use case, right? So maybe not the first thing that you want to try, but certainly the tools are there for it.
Okay. Olivier, anything?
Yeah, Answer the Public is great. Besides doing research, it has helped on condensing all the numbers for reporting for the month. It's given us executive summaries and overviews. It does a really good job at crunching data and summarizing. But I think for sure, if we move forward and use AI for anything, you're still going to have to fact check it. So although the reporting has taken half the time to create, we still look at it and make sure everything's tight. But we use that also, again, predictive data. What's happening? What happened last year? What can we expect to happen in the next coming quarters? And make decisions based on that.
Great. So a yacht charter broker using AI to increase sales, what about automation in AI? Is AI integrated into their CRM? What about follow-up reminders? Can you use AI for that?
You definitely can. We spend a lot of time in HubSpot, and AI is everywhere. If you're using Canva, it's in Canva, it's in Vado, anything. So HubSpot has introduced their AI platforms, HubSpot Breeze, Intelligence, and Agents. I'm spending a lot more time on that lately because it is relatively new, but basically it's going to enrich your data. It will allow you to do those follow-ups, but before we already had these things set up. So like I was talking about this earlier with somebody else, that what we do is highly customized regardless. AI has only helped us get there faster and allow us to have more time to think creatively. But with the use of AI in CRMs, yeah, forget about it. There's no excuses anymore.
Absolutely.
And like anything, it's going to take time to set up on the front end, right? So the same thing with a CRM, it's really only as effective as the data that you put into it. So,
Absolutely. Which still has to be manually entered.
Yeah, there's still an element of, input. There's still an element of setup, but absolutely it's just going to enhance the tools that are already there, especially on the CRM side.
Okay, great. So the next topic I just find so fascinating because I didn't know about this until yesterday. And Sarah, I'm going to start with you. What is GEO?
Generative Engine Optimization. So different than SEO, which, is obviously a huge part of everyone's marketing strategy. GEO really takes a look at optimizing content specifically for AI engines. And the way that it's different than SEO is, SEO is based around a keyword that you want to rank for. And it's a slow burn. SEO takes a lot of work and a long time, and a lot of kind of deliberate and consistent efforts. So GEO should be added to a holistic marketing strategy to start kind of taking advantage of these things, but it's much more conversational based. So it would be based around answering a question. So similar to the way that, you would prompt ChatGPT and it would give you an answer back. This is the style of content that you want to write versus, just jamming a blog with a bunch of keywords. So it should be written in a really conversational tone, and it should answer a very specific question. So one of the samples that we got the other day was, what can I expect from a luxury yacht charter? And then having, maybe 5 bullet points to answer that. So that would be a really simple, add-in. If you're already blogging and you're already creating content, this would be a really simple add-in to your marketing strategy just to kind of start throwing that in so that you're not only ranking for the keywords that you want to show up, on Google and different search engines for, but you're also paying attention to what's happening on the AI side and making sure that you're showing up there.
Sure. Olivier?
Yeah, so my philosophy with SEO has always been pretty much what GEO is based on. Like, just get your structure correct to begin with, make it interesting, something that I would want to read or something that the buyer would want to read. And it seems like with SEO, it's always changing because you never know what Google's doing on the back end for their algorithm. And I don't think GEO is exempt from that either. So depending on how you structure your data, because at the end of the day, these are robots crawling your website. How do you make it seem seamless enough where the robots can understand it and they choose your content over the competitor's content because it's clearly defined, you have something unique, and it's not stuff with keywords, it's not fluffy, and it's not generated with just AI. It has to have some kind of value to it, for sure.
I mean, that's the crazy loop, right? You can use AI to generate GEO content, but it's like eventually we're just like robots
amazing.
talking to robots,
Yeah,
right?
it's going to be a cycle.
So
amazing.
it
Vicious
is
cycle.
interesting, but it could certainly help you get started, right? And then the value of that content, is just going to get better as you put more of the human touch into it.
Great. So with everything that we've discussed so far, what are practical AI applications that brokers could implement into their day-to-day basis? If let's say they've never used ChatGPT before, and where would be a good place for them to start? Would it be using AI to assist them with drafting their emails? Would it work? We had already discussed itineraries, or what about if they're dealing with a European client? Can they use ChatGPT to translate into another language?
Absolutely. So Google Translate is a form of AI. So that's a really easy one that they can start experimenting with. Calendly is another one for setting appointments that uses AI and suggests, conflict-free appointment slots and things like that. ChatGPT is obviously awesome and something that you can put on your phone. And I think for anyone that's kind of fearful or resistant to starting to use AI, I would say start to test it, in your personal life. And once you get a little bit more comfortable with it there, you can really start to introduce it to your professional life. And I think that that's been a good learning curve for me because I understand, what its capabilities are. And then I start to test it a little bit more with my career and in my work and really see how it can benefit me.
Okay. Olivier?
It's funny because my broker friends, they don't even use it.
Really?
Yes, you'd be surprised. I think marketers are benefiting from it more than anybody. But yeah, it's maybe that's the whole reason we're here, to introduce it and make them feel comfortable. But it's not going anywhere, so get started. You don't want to be the guy or gal not using it if your client's asking you for everything and they're very demanding. So yeah, start using it personally. It's perfect. Ask some questions. You have a personal a vacation, plan your own itinerary, see how the use case. Another way of using it that we talked about was, imagine finding a hot prospect has a hobby or an interest. You can learn a little bit more about that. It gives you an edge on the next conversation you have. Thinking outside the box a little bit, but it's a good research tool, and it's not a replacement for your own imagination. So take it as far as you can.
Absolutely.
I have a funny way that you could try using it because it's been effective for me. If you get an email from someone that has an objection in it or seems upset, throw that email into ChatGPT and say, the prompt I used was like, how can I respond, overcome their objection, but also kind of like show them I know what I'm talking about.
Oh,
and
okay.
It'll actually give you a perfect response to that. So I think it's also interesting to, when you're dealing with clients, right? Hey, I want to respond to this. I want to address their concern, but I also want to show them that like I'm the expert and, and I want to give them good information. Like it kind of is mind blowing that it can actually kind of use reason and emotion to give you a great response. And I think it's helpful because it helps you take the emotion out of it too.
That's great. Well, I know that both of you are already using, the AI driven SEO and content creators. But one thing you touched on, Olivier, was like a social listening for identifying prospects. I find that really interesting too, because you're diving into their world a little bit, and
Yes.
you might be able to find some additional prospects from them
Imagine
as well.
before AI, what were you doing then?
Exactly. So, what other insights would you say, as far as, can you use AI for predicting the season? What would be a great charter season, like a booking season, or pricing trends? I heard recently a yacht owner that turned down a charter because he took the inquiry from the charter manager, inputted it into ChatGPT, and ChatGPT told him not to entertain the charter, that if he held out, he would get a better charter. Don't really know about that. But
Did he get the better
I
charter?
have no idea,
That's a good question.
but that's really quite interesting. I mean, to look at these data insights, and is that what we're going to look at down the road? Are we going to have yacht owners and their assistants? Maybe
Exactly.
we hold out and we're going to get something else.
Imagine they have all the time to do this. And if they don't, they can find somebody who does. So
Absolutely.
again, don't be the guy, don't be the girl.
There are definitely platforms that can help with dynamic pricing based on demand. We see that a lot in the hospitality industry as well. So that would be something that certainly charter managers could look into and see if this is something that we want to implement based on helping us make those educated decisions. Should we take this charter or should we hold out?
Great. What about like risks or best practices for a charter broker to use when using AI? Olivier?
You said this yesterday and I loved it. Verify, trust, but verify. And that's my main thing always. If I see my team is a little too optimistic about the content, I'll be on the other side and play the devil's advocate. Did we fact check that? Did we look at other AIs? Did we actually Google it ourselves outside of AI? I find myself using the AI overview result more often, and I'm noticing it myself. So I'm going to assume a lot of people are seeing the same things. So definitely want to make sure that you're not taking it from ChatGPT and throwing it out, especially when it comes to creative content. AI has ruined a few words for me. And you're laughing. I know meticulous, unparalleled, exceptional. Yeah, they were nice words at one point. Now it's just diluted. So those are things that I definitely want to. I let everybody know. Listen, your ChatGPT is showing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There are definitely some tells, right? So I would say, and it's funny, I think, being on the marketing side and being on the creative side, like you have a lot of people representing this content as their own, but you're like, well, I see the long dash and I see
Yes.
the emojis and I see the bullets. And for people that are kind of well-versed on ChatGPT, there's a lot of signs, right? And so I think that it always should be, and what's funny is there's actually a secondary platform that you can get something from ChatGPT and then run it through a secondary platform to kind of un-ChatGPT it to make it sound more human, which
Okay.
is funny, right? But I think you have to be really careful of like presenting anything as original, especially to people that are more familiar with the platform, because if there's certain things that you'll see in the formatting that is a dead giveaway that you've copy and pasted
Yes.
from
I
ChatGPT,
agree.
and that's, I think, a bad look. I think that is not what we're going for. That doesn't represent authenticity and things like that.
Okay.
But I would just say, as with anything, I think you have to be careful with it. These AI engines are not going to access everything on your phone. They're not going to access every contact that you have. But on the same note, don't put sensitive information into an AI engine. This is why it's banned in a lot of industries like insurance and things like that.
Sure.
So, I think you just have to be cognizant and vigilant about what you're putting into these engines, because obviously any sensitive information
Absolutely.
shouldn't be there.
Data
Just
privacy
to
is
add
key.
on top of that, over automation, relying on it too much, it's going to take away from the personal
personal
aspect of
touch.
it. So don't let it.
Well, So since we're almost out of time, I'm just going to go over a quick, what would be a great action plan for a broker to use to start small? And I'll touch briefly on it with you, and then Olivier, what would be a great action plan for a charter broker never using AI before? Where should they start?
I think two things. One is if there are AI tools inside the platforms that they're already using, and that might be just a small, refine this with AI or see a different subject line written by AI. There's little, and like you said, we're going to see more and more of them. They're certainly already in HubSpot, Salesforce, a lot of the CRMs that we're using. So just try using those AI tools within the platforms that you're already comfortable with, and see how it goes. I think that's a really good kind of easing into the use of AI.
Okay, great. Olivier?
I agree with all of that. So I'll just add one more to that I've noticed recently that people who have no idea about AI have just fell into. Notebook LLM, it creates a podcast based on whatever prompt or PDFs or documents you want to upload. It literally creates 2 characters to speak about a topic or a problem solution and breaks it down in layman's terms, and it's very easy to digest. So I've seen it work for a lot of people already studying for their finals, and from colleges to older people. So I know this is not heavy lifting. Try that, see the capabilities of it, and we'll just take it from there. And then you hopefully you'll get comfortable with it enough to start using it in your emails. It's already integrated everywhere. So just take note of it and don't fall behind.
And they could also use it for generated marketing, and like we said about conversations. Look at even conversions. I find that was really interesting. Using it for rate conversions, because it's actually faster than what you can find online. I didn't realize that. But we are out of time, so I'm going to say stay tuned for our next panel discussion. And thank you again, Sarah and Olivier, for being here. And
we have been building high-end custom yachts for over 68 years. We also do an extensive amount of refit, repair, all the way down to basic annual maintenance. We've got the guys that can do the job.
Elliott Bay Marina is the closest marina to the city of Seattle. We have a 1,000-foot guest dock and 200 amp power for our super yacht moorage.
I started the company back in 2007 with the vision to be the best yacht service company on the West Coast. Our foundation is our people. We can take on just about any project, and it's hiring the right people, good people. With that recipe in mind, it can't fail.
Welcome back. I'm here with David Moss from Alley Moss Rogers Lindsay, and we are talking about U.S. charter vessels, U.S. flag, boats that are chartering in U.S. waters and outside of U.S. waters, as well as boats that are duty paid and able to do that, with a few topics that have been recurrently brought up by the EBA Charter Committee over the years. And hopefully we'll have some clarification today from David. Welcome.
Thank you.
So some of the things that are, I guess, the starting points with the basics of chartering with a U.S. flag boat in U.S. waters are duty payment, U.S. goods returned. Maybe you can start with that.
Sure. Well, the first prerequisite for a vessel to be offered for charter to U.S. residents in U.S. waters is that she be either U.S. built or foreign built, imported, and duty paid. A foreign built vessel brought into the U.S. cannot be offered for charter to U.S. residents in U.S. waters unless you import the vessel and pay duty. Even if the vessel is U.S. built, if she's been exported to another country, let's say you have a U.S. built boat that at some point there was a closing in the Bahamas.
Or it was foreign flagged at some point. It could have lost its duty. Is that correct?
No, flag has really nothing to do with duty status, although that is a very common thing that people think. But you can foreign flag a boat that's duty paid and not affect
The
the
duty
duty
itself.
status. Yeah. But if you have a U.S. built boat that's been exported, even if she stayed under the U.S. flag the whole time, when you come back in, you still need to get what's called a U.S. goods returned entry, which is sort of like you're importing the boat, but you don't have to pay duty because it's a U.S. build. And that is the first requirement to charter before you get into coastwise, bareboat, passenger limits, all of that. The first sort of bedrock requirement is the boat has to be either U.S. built or, if she's foreign built, duty paid and imported. There's a couple of exceptions. So the first one is that applies to charters to U.S. residents in U.S. waters. So in theory, you could restrict the offer to non-residents, but I don't know that that's economically viable for a charter program. And also, if you leave that sort of disclaimer off any advertising, you're potentially exposing yourself to duty. And then the other exception is the U.S. Virgin Islands. The U.S. Virgin Islands are not part of the customs area of the U.S., which means that foreign boats are legal to charter there, even if they've never been imported.
And am I correct? The Jones Act also doesn't apply there, I believe.
So the Jones Act, the component of the Jones Act that deals with coastwise trade doesn't apply there either. So you're not worried about using a bareboat charter to get around the coastwise laws. What people should remember, though, when you're talking about USVI, is the immigration laws still do apply. So you need to make sure you have that any foreign crew have the right visa, because even though you're not worried about customs duty or the coastwise laws, you still have to worry about the crew being legal to work in the U.S.
And the secondary part of that, I guess, would be also if it's being done in Florida, having the Florida tax paid on the vessel in order to do business here as a charter vessel.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. What about crew visas? If the boat is U.S. flagged, let's say, we have all U.S. citizens or residents on board as crew, or can there be any foreigners if the vessel is chartering here?
So there's a few different laws that impose citizenship requirements for crew on U.S. documented vessels. First, there's the documentation laws. To have certain forms of documentation, the crew have to be U.S. citizens. If you have a coastwise endorsement, for instance, the crew all have to be U.S. citizens. That's number one. Number two is there are various licensing requirements that apply to vessels over 200 gross tons, and those licenses are available only to U.S. citizens. So even though there's not a direct citizenship requirement, there's a licensing requirement which has a citizenship requirement. So over 200 gross tons, they have to be U.S. citizens. The third law or set of laws that imposes citizenship requirements is the immigration law. So that applies to charters in U.S. waters because the foreign crew have to be legal to work in the U.S. The visa that is most commonly used by foreign yacht crew, the B-1 visa, is for private yachts. It's not supposed to be used on yachts that charter. So the crew have to either be lawful permanent residents, green card holders, who are legal to work in the U.S. They can work on charters. Or
Citizens, I would assume.
citizens.
Right?
Citizens are best, but they can. There are other visas that they can use.
Okay.
A C1D, which is what commercial crew use, but that has a number of downsides. You can only be in the U.S. for 29 days, and it's not realistic.
The limitations
Yeah.
are where we get into problems. Okay. And if the vessel is on a bareboat and chartering in the Bahamas, can a certain percentage of the crew then be foreign if it's not really relevant to visas in U.S. waters, but it's a U.S. flag vessel on a bareboat agreement? Are you aware?
If you're under 200 gross tons and you don't have a coastwise endorsement, so you're recreational only, and you're doing a bareboat charter in foreign waters, there are no citizenship requirements.
Okay, great, thank you. What would you say are some of the most important things for crew who are on a bareboat agreement, especially when it's in U.S. waters, to know when, let's say, a U.S. Coast Guard official might board the boat, or the charterers are needing to be briefed on anything?
Well, for foreign crew, I think they just need to talk to an immigration lawyer and understand what their visa allows them to do. As far as I know, CBP has never said definitively that you can't use a B-1 visa for bareboat charters. That visa category is for private recreational vessels, and Coast Guard and CBP have long taken the position that a bareboat charter for recreational purposes is a recreational use, notwithstanding the fact that it's a charter. But I don't believe that CBP has ever said you can use a B-1 visa for bareboat charters, and so I think it is safer to assume that you can't.
Okay.
That it's going to be treated the same as a time charter, which means you need either to be a green card holder or to get one of these other visas that would enable you to work on a commercial vessel.
Okay. And separate to the visa side of things, if, the basics of bareboating were the topic, what would you say are important things for the owner and the crew to know in that case?
From my point of view, the most important thing is making sure the charterer understands the nature of the relationship, knows what they're getting into. The charterer under a bareboat agreement has to assume possession, command, and navigation of the vessel. They are basically the temporary owner during the charter period. They're fully responsible for the vessel. They're employing the crew. And they have to understand that. So if they're asked, if they're stopped and asked by Coast Guard or CBP, whose crew is this, or who has possession of the vessel, they understand that it's them.
Right.
Because
they've chosen that crew. They've even had...
They've chosen the crew. The crew are working for them. They have full control over the crew. Because in my experience, the most common... sometimes people don't even try to adhere to the form of a bareboat charter. They make it very easy for enforcement. But even when everything is right on paper, if the charterer doesn't understand the nature of the charter and he is asked directly by the Coast Guard or CBP and gives the wrong answer, that's fatal.
And it becomes contrary to what they signed then
Yes.
if they don't understand it. Okay, that makes perfect sense, really. I think it's also about brokers coaching the charterer on that ahead of time as well,
Yes.
so it's not falling completely on the crew. As far as we touched on the citizenship requirement for captains, et cetera, and tonnage being part of that. What about when it comes to the principal charterer being considered an owner versus a passenger? Can we consider 12 as the max on a bareboat, or is it really 13?
So the passenger limits for charters in U.S. waters are set by the Passenger Vessel Safety Act, which divides up vessels into categories based on tonnage. Vessels over 100 gross tons that are offered for time charter, or vessels of any tonnage that are offered for bareboat charter, maximum is 12 passengers. It's the most you can carry. Under a bareboat charter, because the charterer is basically stepping into the owner's shoes, becoming the owner during the charter period, the primary charterer, as long as it's an individual, does not count toward the passenger limit. So you could have the charterer, and then you could have up to 12 guests as passengers on a bareboat charter.
Okay, and that would hold for both a charter within U.S. waters as well as one outside of U.S. waters?
Yes.
Okay. When at the dock, does that also hold true? In other words, we're often hearing a boat that's stationary can do events as long as they are not moving. And some vessels in other parts of the world, can do that, let's say up to 20 guests if it's their safe manning or otherwise. Can you explain if that's different for U.S. vessels or
Sure.
in U.S. waters?
The Passenger Vessel Safety Act applies to vessels at the dock just as it applies to vessels underway. It doesn't matter for dockside events, so you're still capped at 12 guests or 12 passengers. And if you want to have more, you would have to go to the captain of the port and get sort of a special permission to do that. I would say that probably enforcement is lighter with respect to dockside events, and many people sort of rely on that, but the Passenger Vessel Safety Act applies to both.
Okay. great. I think that gives good clarity because it is different here. I feel that from where we experience it in other parts of the world. With regards to some of the pros and cons of using a corporation as the charterer, can you touch on, whether that's a pro for a charterer, pro for an owner, or vice versa if it's a con?
So sometimes charterers want to use a company to enter into the charter agreement. And from the owner's point of view, I think that's fine, provided you either know that the company has assets or the ultimate beneficial owner of that company agrees to provide a personal guarantee of the charterer's obligations under the charter agreement. If it's just a shell company and the charterer is trying to avoid any liability, that's concerning from an owner's point of view. But if they want to use an LLC or something just for privacy reasons, I think that's totally valid. The only other downside really is if you have a charterer that's an entity as opposed to an individual, you can't take advantage of that charterer plus 12 guests. You would be limited to 12 charter guests, including the primary charter guest, because even the primary charter guest, that individual, is not the named charterer.
Sure. So having not only a guarantor for the liability and financial responsibility, should there be a shell corporation, but also perhaps the designated person that might be assigned.
Yeah, I think when you have a company as the charterer, definitely the best practice is to have something that appoints, some sort of document that appoints a sort of a designated person. Who is the crew going to
go to
take
for
orders
instruction?
from? Yeah.
Right. Great. And then with regards to a charter where a principal charterer might be the one paying for the charter but not on board, what's your position there? Do you think they need to be on board, or is there a way around that? Maybe a gift to a family member or otherwise.
I think it could be hard to explain if they were stopped why this person isn't on board.
Especially in a bareboat.
Especially in a bareboat scenario where there's going to be more scrutiny. I mean, we always advise owners when they want to make the vessel available for friends and family to have a letter of authorization showing that these people are allowed to use the boat. And I suppose you could have something similar in a bareboat charter scenario, but it just doesn't look right.
There's risk if it's U.S. Coast Guard boarding the vessel and having questions. So perhaps these are the situations where it happens in the Bahamas instead of, or foreign waters versus U.S. waters if it was to happen. Okay. You've mentioned to me about an update in a Supreme Court case with regards to marine insurance. Do you mind touching on that a bit?
Yeah. So the reason I want to talk about the Supreme Court case is I kind of wanted to explain what it is that we as lawyers worry about with illegal charters. I think that for many people, the concern with illegal charters is that you're going to get boarded by CBP or the Coast Guard. They're going to terminate the charter. You're going to owe liquidated damages to the charterer. You potentially are going to owe fines to the government, and that's sort of the nightmare scenario. But we as lawyers, for us, that's not the nightmare scenario. And the thing that we really worry about, I think, ties into insurance. So when you have an insurance policy, typically it will have a number of warranties things that you as the insured are promising to do. You'll keep the vessel in a seaworthy condition. You'll only take the vessel within these geographic limits. You'll have a named captain, et cetera, et cetera. And if you breach one of these warranties, depending on the law that applies to your policy, your insurer may or may not be able to use that to avoid paying out for the loss, even if the breach has nothing to do with what ultimately happened, what caused the loss. So in Florida, we have something called an anti-technical statute, which says that for the insurer to use the breach as a reason to deny coverage, there has to be a causal relationship between the breach and the loss. Whatever you did wrong, whatever you weren't complying with in your insurance contract has to be the thing that actually caused the loss. Other states, like New York, don't have that. And so New York is a very popular choice of governing law for marine insurance contracts. And the Supreme Court last year, they don't take very many maritime cases. So whenever there's a maritime case, it gets a lot of attention from the maritime bar. In the decision last year, they upheld a choice of law clause in a marine insurance contract, and it was exactly that scenario. It was significant loss on a yacht, and there was a breach of warranty, and they were trying to apply, I think it was Pennsylvania law, which was more generous to the insured, and the insurer was trying to get New York law, and they got it. The Supreme Court unanimously ruled for the insurer. So what we as lawyers are worried about is that something happens during the charter, some sort of catastrophic loss, property damage, personal injury, death, something really bad happens. And because it was an illegal charter, and you're therefore in breach of the warranty of legality in your insurance policy, even if whatever makes it an illegal charter, even if that has nothing to do with what happened, your insurer could avoid paying for the loss. So that you would have potentially a massive uninsured liability.
Danger zones, yeah.
So that's what we worry about is, you want to make sure you do everything by the book, that you follow the law, because if you don't, potentially, depending on what the governing law is in your insurance policy, you could be exposed to liability.
Okay. Is this also something that we should continue to do? I know most of us are aware of doing it, but in giving a recommendation to charterers with extra coverage for the yacht if they're responsible as a sort of transfer of ownership as you've described in a bareboat scenario?
So if I were a bareboat charterer, I would probably be more interested in charterer's liability insurance because I am assuming more responsibility for the vessel and for the crew under those agreements than I would be as a time charterer. There are some provisions in the bareboat charter agreement and the crew services agreement that protect the charterer from liability. But I think that for a bareboat charterer, it's worth thinking about taking out charterer's liability insurance.
Okay, and it's still mandated that the owner carries their policy during the bareboat scenario. I think this all comes down to negligence claims and who, if there is negligence found, right, in the end. Well, at this point, I think we've covered most things here. If there's anything that you feel we haven't covered that is sort of a hot topic that you see in cases coming across your desk with regards to bareboats or owners, by all means, we would want to know that. I think, what crew need to know, what charters need to know, and what owners need to know are usually the most pressing things going into a charter. And then secondary to that is whether that charter is happening in U.S. waters or outside of U.S. waters, right?
So on bareboat charters, I think the two big things are, one, educating the owner about the risks involved in a bareboat charter, because it is, there's no statutory definition of a bareboat charter. It's a concept under the general maritime law that cases talk about, but I can't point to a black and white definition and say this is what a bareboat charter is. And that means it's open to interpretation. So even if you as the owner do everything right and maintain separation between the owner and the employer, separate agreements, all that, even if you do everything right, potentially someone from CBP or the Coast Guard could take a different view. And so I think it's important.
We see that across state to state, even.
Yes.
I mean,
There's,
not just counties and cities, but all over.
There are inconsistencies in how they apply the definition of a bareboat charter in different sectors. So I think owners have to understand that even if you do everything right, there's a risk. And then the other important thing is educating charterers, as I said, about the nature of a bareboat charter. Because the first thing they're going to do is talk to the charterer. Did you have the right to choose this crew? Are the crew working for you? And if the charterer doesn't understand the nature of the charter agreement and the extent of his responsibility for the vessel and the crew during the charter period, and he gives the wrong answer, there's really no way to come back from that. And that, I think, is probably what happens most commonly when a charter is terminated because they said that a bareboat charter was really a disguised time charter. The paperwork's all in order, but the charter didn't understand what he was what he was doing.
Yeah, it makes sense. If I were to ask one last thing, and it's really related to that, is how in depth have you ever seen either Coast Guard or insurance go to the financial separation between the owner and the crew? In other words, if we have a separation of an owner agreeing with a charter on the bareboat side and the crew in an agreement for vessel services with the charterer, is the charter ever checked on whether they've paid the crew directly or the crew have been separately paid and they're not being paid as employees of the owner?
If you're in a situation where something like that becomes important, you're probably already in trouble. But it's definitely better if there are separate bank accounts and separate payments. It doesn't look good if you're paying the full charter fee, both the bareboat charter fee and the crew services fee, to the same account. So I'm not aware of a case where CBP or the Coast Guard has looked at that specifically as a reason why a bareboat charter wasn't a bona fide bareboat charter. But if an owner is trying to do everything right, you definitely want to make sure that you have separate accounts and separate payments.
Super. I mean, I think we covered a lot of grounds today. Thank you very much for the clarity. And that's a wrap.
Thank you for joining us this morning. I'd also like to thank all of our panelists and the Charter Committee for creating this webinar for you today. And congratulations to all our Wynwood VIP tickets winners. We'll email you confirmation in the next couple of days. A big thank you to Informa for providing these opportunities to our membership. I'm Jeff Schaefer. I'll see you on the docks.
At Seabold Portraits, we custom hand-draw yachts. The ultimate gift for brokers and charter managers alike. For brokers, it's the perfect closing gift, with complimentary note cards featuring your brokerage information on the back, a lasting reminder of your service. For charters, each set can be personalised with thank you notes from the captain and crew, the perfect touch to follow those unforgettable trips and generous gratuities. More than a gift, it's a legacy. Email us at seaboldportraits@gmail.com or give us a call. We're looking forward to working with you.
We have been building high-end custom yachts for over 68 years. We also do an extensive amount of refit, repair, all the way down to basic annual maintenance. We've got the guys that can do the job.
Elliott Bay Marina is the closest marina to the city of Seattle. We have a 1,000-foot guest dock and 200-amp power for our super yacht moorage.
I started the company back in 2007 with the vision to be the best yacht service company on the West Coast. Our foundation is our people. We can take on just about any project, and it's hiring the right people, good people. With that recipe in mind, it can't fail.